welcome to this episode of the Blog Chronicles. I am your host, Matthew Loomis. This show is sponsored by BuildYourOwnBlog.net, the full-service destination for people who want to start their own WordPress blog and achieve long-term success. Visit BuildYourOwnBlog.net to start your new blog today. My guest today runs two blogs. His first blog has a specific business purpose, selling amusement park equipment. Yes, you can use a blog to sell roller coasters. And his second blog appears to be targeting the blogging tips niche, but his content also crosses over into self-help and inspiration, because my guest is highly qualified to run both types of blogs. He inspires people because he runs both blogs with his eyes closed. What I mean is, my guest today is blind, and is known as the Blind Blogger. So let's get our chronicle on today with Maxwell Ivey. Hi, Maxwell. Welcome to the show.
Well, hi, Matthew. It's good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the Blog Chronicles. Today I've got some questions for you. And first of all, I want to start with your title. You're known as the Blind Blogger. And in fact, that's one of your domain names, theblindblogger.net. Let's start there. Is your physical blindness something that you were born with, or did this come later?
I was born with a degenerative disease called retinitis pigmentosa, or RP, and I had perfect vision until I was 4 or 5 years old, and then started losing it gradually until I was a teenager. Then I had a big drop off of vision. It stayed pretty stable until I was in college, and then lost down to what I have now, which is light perception. And I consider it total blindness because I do everything with either speech, tactile, or by asking somebody else what it is.
Yeah, so for those, who are wondering right now, how does someone blog or even use the internet when they can't see? Can you tell us how you're able to use the internet? Kind of give us a rundown of how that works?
Sure. Like a lot of blind people, I use a computer that has speech on it. I'm a Mac user, which means I use a program called VoiceOver. For Windows users, they use a program called JAWS, and then there's a third one, which is a nonprofit thing called NVDA, which is totally free. And the difficulty comes not from accessing the web, but from actually being able to move around websites and find the information you need, or being able to access the blog dashboard on WordPress or whatever platform you're using to manage your website. Because quite often the people who run the websites don't really consider accessibility a priority. Mm-hmm. And they often, and the other thing they like to do is they like to update their websites all the time. So generally every time somebody updates a site that you have to use on a regular basis, then you have to figure out exactly how to find the information that you feel is important to you on those websites. And the worst offenders are the social media sites, especially Facebook. And I've said this many times before, if I ever meet Mark Zuckerberg in the street, I'm going to punch him in the nose.
Wow, yeah, he does a lot of changes, a lot.
Yeah, I've told people that using Facebook as a blind person is like living in a house where they know you're blind, but they still rearrange the furniture every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow. Now, you're using WordPress?
Yeah, I use WordPress now, but when I first started my first website and blog, which was at the Midway Marketplace, I did everything with HTML code and actually had to hand code everything on my website one line at a time. And I honestly think that I've coded at least 1 million, if not 2 million or more lines of code in the 5 or 6 years before I finally switched to WordPress and decided to let them do it. But I find that I got so familiar with using HTML code that a lot of times instead of using the WordPress dashboard and doing it their way, I will just revert back to entering the less thans and greater thans in a WordPress document and uploading it.
Wow, that is impressive. I mean, most people that have total vision don't code, so that's pretty amazing.
And Yeah, and when I was doing it, most people that code use what's called a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get application. And as a blind person, I could not use any of those applications. So I pretty much had to teach myself the basics of HTML, and thankfully someone referred me to the w3c.org online tutorials, and I just went through those tutorials one lesson at a time and practiced with with the examples they gave you, and then started using them on my website. And eventually I got to where I can't create in PHP or Java, but I can do just about anything you can do in HTML. If I needed to do something in PHP or Java, I would have to go find somebody's script and pay for it or borrow it or ask them if I could use it. Because PHP and Java are just, I would say they're anywhere from 3 to 10 times more difficult than HTML, just because of the way the language is written, and it just never made sense to me. HTML makes sense because it's symmetrical. Every opening phrase has to have a closing phrase. Every and if you don't have an opening and a closing for everything, then something breaks.
Right. So as a visually impaired person, you say you use WordPress now. Do you consider WordPress to be pretty good for visually impaired?
I consider it to be really good. They are one of the few websites going that not only makes an effort on accessibility, but actually makes an effort to teach accessibility. Because I don't know if you've ever been to one of their word camps, but I know people who have, and they tell me that at the word camps, WordPress puts an emphasis on accessibility, on tagging buttons and photos so blind people can access that information on websites, on creating forms with description with quality descriptions, so a blind person through their screen reader can know what information they're supposed to enter in each field. And they're serious about it, which there are a lot of companies that may make a token effort, but in my opinion, WordPress is probably one of the best online companies as far as their commitment to accessibility and also teaching it to the people who use their site.
That is fabulous. I need to spread that word out a little more. The WordPress is so accommodating to people with special needs. That's fabulous to know that.
Yeah, and I hear that they're just as good as far as helping people who are worried about their sites being visited by people who have mobility disabilities, like people who are using the computer as a paraplegic or quadriplegic, that they address that as well. It's not something I know much about, but I have heard that they do cover that too.
That's great to know, and I should make it to one of those word camps sometime. It sounds like fun.
It does sound like it would be fun. It sounds like it's probably pretty intense, but if you're somebody who is a blogger and serious about your craft, it's something that would probably be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, well, let's get into your craft a little bit. Now, from what I've read, you run a couple of different blogs. It's my understanding that you started out with a business blog that has a very specific niche, and that's the carnival business, which you can tell us about in a second. And then you as you did that blog, you met people online and they encouraged you to start a second blog, which is now theblindblogger.net. Can you tell us a little bit about these two blogs?
Right. Well, the first blog was for the Midway Marketplace, where I blog about new equipment listings, new clients, safety issues, and things like that. A lot of times I like to blog. I like to do a blog post with photos and videos, as opposed to just an ad listing with those, because it makes it easier for people to access it, because it puts the photos and the video right in front of them. They don't have to click additional links to see them. So that's one of the things. And when I actually started the first blog, when I started the blog for the Midway Marketplace, I didn't know what I was doing. People said, you're online, Max, you have a website, but now you really need a blog. And I'm like, well, I don't know what a blog is or why I really need one, but I was convinced to go ahead and start one. And I've enjoyed doing it, because there have been several times where the blog post has led to sales, especially quick sales on that website. And it also helped me rediscover my general love for writing that had been dormant during the college years and the years I was trying to help my family build our own carnival business.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the blind blogger goes, most people don't know a lot of blind people. In general, you might have one of us in your circle of friends, or maybe even just one or two of us in your online community. So it becomes kind of a shorthand for people to refer to you as the blind whatever. Like I have a friend here in Houston who's a blind triathlete. I have a friend in Oregon. He's an online marketer, and they call him, his thing is Periscope, and they call him the blind Periscoper. It's just there's so few of us that people run into that when they see us that we're like the only one, and that's how the blind blogger. I was sharing posts on LinkedIn and other social media groups. And several of the people started using that as a shorthand to refer to me. And when I decided that I needed a second website, then they're like, Max, we've been calling you the blind blogger for over a year. So why don't you just see if that's available? And the .com was taken, but the .net was available. And I think the .com is finally going to be available soon. And when it is, I'm going to grab it up just so I can stake my claim to it and not have somebody else's message being on the blind blogger website.
Yeah, that's a great story. So your first blog, it's pretty clear as far as the purpose goes. You're selling carnival equipment and doing things in that niche. That's how it generates income. And is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, that's a perfect description. Everything that is done on that website and that blog is focused on generating direct sales or the attraction of new clients who may eventually list equipment and generate new sales.
And you said that you blog regularly on that site?
Well, not as regularly as I would like to. I don't remember when the last time I posted to the blog was. I actually had this conversation with my good friend Adrienne Smith, and she told me, she said, Max, I know you're afraid that the two audiences won't get along, but you're crazy if you're going to start a second blog. She said, you don't need the extra work. If people unsubscribe or leave or stop coming to your website because you're posting about being the blind blogger or vice versa, big deal. And she says she tried to talk me out of it. And in actuality, in the last few months, I have really considered the idea of starting a new website, and just one website under maxwellivey.com, and having the blind blogger and Mr. Midway and all that stuff in one place, just to cut down on the amount of lifting I have to do on a regular basis. So, a lot of times your friends try to tell you better and you don't listen to them because you think you know better. And sometimes you find out 2 years later that, yeah, they were right and you were wrong and you should have listened to them, because it's a lot of work for one blog. And because it isn't just the articles, it's the social media posts, it's the replying to comments, it's coming up with the ideas to what to write about. It's the actual editing and formatting and publishing of the posts. There's just so much that goes along with one website that I really wish I hadn't done this, but I've done it now. So here I am. And, I'm not one of these people that is going to go, woe is me and get down on myself and be upset about it. I'm just going to deal with it and move forward in the best way I can with it. And I think that long term, the best way is going to be to create a hub site, embed both of them, move all of my stuff to one site, and possibly when I post, have two admins or something where when I post, I can post as either Mr. Midway or the blind blogger, so people will know right away which audience I'm writing to. It's just some thoughts I've had.
Yeah, I'm chuckling because everything you just said is so true about the commitment and the work that it takes to run a blog. What would you say to those who, I'm sure you've heard this before, that will say, well, you should keep the website more focused and not have the two together? Are you concerned that will get confusing? I'm just curious.
Well, I am concerned about it. That's why I started this two sites in the beginning to start with. But I think the real question is if I can find a way to bring the two together without getting rid of either of my brand names, then I'll do it. If I can't, then I'll just continue with what I'm doing, and I'll look into the possibility of having guest posters and possibly even regular contributors from the amusement industry to help, pick up some of the slack on that website.
Yeah, that sounds good and plausible. I wish you well on that. We'll have to keep in touch. I'd like to hear how that goes. Now, when it comes, focusing on the blindblogger.net, can you share with us how that blog is monetized?
Well, that blog has, people can contact me through that blog for coaching, life goals coaching, where I help them define their goal and get down to what is really important to them as opposed to what they think they should be going after or what their family taught them to go after, or, get down to the real root of what it is that'll make them happy, and then, define the steps and resources required, and then keep them motivated and accountable along the way. That's one method. Mm-hmm. The other is that in something that really didn't start out as something I planned on doing, people have asked me, Max, how do you get booked on all the radio stations and podcasts and YouTube channels? And I started telling people, and then a friend of mine said, Max, you can't keep giving this kind of quality information away. You need to be charging for it. So now I have an online course that people can purchase that will teach them how to get booked on radio shows. Okay. And I'm also offering myself as an online publicist where I do all the work, and all they have to do is show up, be a good guest, and promote on social media after they're through. So that's another method. Mm-hmm. And we can't forget my books because, Leading Me Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success. It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, An Easy-to-Follow Guide to Weight Loss Success. Mm-hmm. And whatever my next book will be called about my crazy solo trip to New York City and back will eventually be on there. Mm. That plus I have contributed to a book by Marilyn Shannon where she talks about how men like me find our heart's purpose. And so I'll be posting that as an Amazon affiliate link because I can't list it as my book since I'm just a contributor. But since I did participate in it, any sales through the Amazon affiliate link, I'll receive a little money from that, which would be an additional method of monetization. Okay. And I also now have an audio version. My first book, Leading You Out of the Darkness, is going to be on Audible in about 10 days or so. Ah. So that'll be another option where I can generate some income.
Cool. Yeah, I want to ask you about that book. It's called Leading Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success. Maxwell, what are some of the reasons why a new blogger should want to read this book?
Well, it really doesn't even have to be a new blogger. It can be anybody with a goal or a dream. We're specifically talking about blogging now, but the book details my life experiences, the lessons I learned from them, and 11 actionable exercises people can go through in order to move down the path towards whatever goal it is they're going after. The book also includes email support where they can communicate with me on their progress. So that while they're going through this new challenge, opportunity, whatever you want to call it, they'll have at least one person that they know will listen and understand when they have some news to share about starting their blog or writing their first post or getting their first comment, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by the way, Maxwell, I'll be linking to your book and everything that we talk about. I'll have the links in the show notes of this podcast. Did I read recently that you won a Amtrak writing trip of some sort?
Yeah, I won. Yeah, I'm one of this year's 24 winners of the Amtrak Writers in Residence, and they choose these people and send them on a cross-country train trip of their choice to work on a writing project. And I chose to go to New York City during the Christmas and New Year's holidays, and I'm actually just now back from New York City. I've been home maybe 2 days. My suitcase isn't even unpacked yet. So, and it was one of those things. I always tell people, just press send. even if it doesn't look like you got a chance in heck, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go ahead and apply. And when I was reading the blog post from Amtrak about applying for this thing, I started reading some of the past winners' bios and profiles, and I'm like, Max, you are not in the right place here. This is not. Excuse me. I said, Max, these people are far more successful and far further down their path than you are. But then I read a comment from somebody who said, I wish that y'all didn't only take people who are already successful, because if you did take people on their way up, I would apply. And that just made me sad. And I'm like, that is just horrible that somebody would think that. And that actually decided me to go ahead and fill out the application and turn it in. And since they require a long writing sample, I used the first 4 chapters of my book, Leading You Out of the Darkness. And I was blessed enough to get picked. And, it was interesting that Amtrak never had a second thought about picking somebody who was blind to get the award. They never talked to me in any of the emails or our phone conversations as if they thought this was a bad idea. And trust me, I've got lots of friends and family who thought it was a horrible idea. I mean, I've had people projecting fear onto me for the last 3 months, and I've had to go to my own private place and meditate and read and listen to good books and, do whatever I can just to block out the noise, because a lot of people thought it was a bad idea. But with Amtrak,
wow,
they never thought that maybe I shouldn't win. The only thing they told me was, Mr. Ivey, we realize that you're blind, so if you want to, you can bring somebody with you, and we will pay for their expenses as well.
Wow.
And I was floored by that. Of course,
yeah.
Nobody was able to go with me, and because think about it. If you're going to be gone for a week or 2 or more, most people have jobs or they have daily family responsibilities.
Yeah.
Or they're a little scared of getting on the train and going with you, thinking they might be responsible for you while you're in whatever city or country you happen to be visiting. So,
and maybe the holiday season too, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good story, because when in my lifetime, there have been lots of cases where I did what I should have done, or I didn't do what I shouldn't have done, or I went the easy way. But on this particular case, I said to myself, Max, you just won this amazing thing. You can go anywhere in the United States. Where do you want to go, and when do you want to go? And that's the only questions I asked myself. And I said, never been to New York City before. And everybody says that New York City is at its best during the holidays. So that's what I settled on. And I think it's a good story. It's a good example, because far too many people do what is expected of them. They get caught in that should or should not, which Louise Hay says are some of the worst words in the English language.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that you ignored the naysayers and pressed through and took that trip, because I saw a few photos of your trip and it looked really, really fun. And I know you met our mutual friend Ryan Biddulph, and I'm just really glad that you did that. That is so exciting.
Yeah, I would say meeting Ryan was one of the top 2 or 3 things that I did while I was in New York City, because, normally he's not even in the country, much less here for a long enough stretch of time that you can get your schedules together and meet him in person. So it was just an amazing opportunity. We talked for over 2 hours, and then he's like, "I've got to go," and I look, I pressed the thing on my phone to find out what time it is. I'm like, "Man, we've been sitting here talking and drinking tea for over 2 hours," and that's just something that doesn't usually happen to me. But we talked about law of attraction, about mindfulness, about opening yourself up to the possibilities that God and the universe has to offer, and just so many things that me and him and I believe me and you also agree on when it comes to being successful as a blogger or any type of activity.
Yeah.
And it was lots of fun.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And I got to see, or I got to go to a performance of Wicked. That was great.
Okay. On Broadway?
I got to go, on Broadway. Yeah, I got to go skating in Rockefeller Center.
Wow.
And I've got some great pictures, but I still haven't gotten them off of my camera that you haven't seen yet. So I'm hoping to post another much longer slideshow any day now of the pictures at Trump Tower and Tiffany's and Rockefeller Center and just the other places I went. Like I rode a pedal cab. I went to Katz's Delicatessen. So I think I did pretty well for somebody traveling by themselves in a big city. I would say that of the 12 days I was there, I probably had 5 days where I did a lot of stuff, and then I had another 6 or 7 days where, maybe I did one thing each day because I just didn't want to be one of those people who comes home from a trip and is tired when he gets there.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. I mean, the Amtrak Riders in Residence program is a big deal, and that's
I had no idea how prestigious the thing was until they started telling me how many people apply for it, and then, like I say, started seeing who the past winners were and who some of the current other people that won it this year were. This is my first award of any kind as an author, and most of the other people that won have lots of awards in their trophy case.
Yeah, right. Well, this is just the first of many more to come, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, because I am always putting myself out there. If there's an opportunity to stick my hand up and say, pick me, I will do it. Even some people tell me I'm maybe a little bit too aggressive sometimes at putting my name in, but I feel like a lot of times when you apply for something, you're basically sending a bird out into the world. You never know if it's going to come back or not. So You have to send out a lot of applications, just never knowing which ones are going to come and which ones are going to be amazing and which ones are just going to be another day for you. And the Amtrak was amazing. Being able to be on your show and because, I know we both know Ryan and he speaks pretty highly of you. So.
Oh, well, yeah, he's a great guy. We could talk a long time about him. You may know him more than I do or longer than I have, but I have interviewed him and plan to have him on again sometime for sure.
Yeah, and the thing that's amazing about Ryan is he's traveling all over the world. Sometimes he's staying in places where they either don't have internet or what they have isn't what you'd call reliable.
Right.
Yet he hardly ever turns down an interview. I mean, if somebody has a brand new podcast and they've got the guts to send Brian an email and ask him if he'll be on their show, the odds are sooner or later he will come on their show.
Yeah, that's true. He's a very giving person. So, Maxwell, you talked about how your family and friends were kind of a lot of them were freaking out or they were not supportive of your trip. I'm just curious, back when you first started blogging, how did your family and friends respond to that?
Well, I have an unusual story when it comes to that part of my life. I'm one of the few people whose family is more supportive of him blogging and writing than they are of me selling amusement equipment, which, you have to remember, I would say 75 to 90% of my family, direct and extended, either are in the amusement business or have at one time in their life. So you would think they would have a natural interest in supporting the Midway Marketplace. But most of them could care less about the Midway Marketplace. The same ones that could care less about the Midway, though, they follow my blog. They follow my social media posts. And they are really supportive of my writing and the books and the interviews and everything else that I'm doing. And the interesting thing about the Amtrak trip is everybody, including my immediate family, my mom, who was very worried about me going. Everybody that was worried about me up until the day I got on the train, it was like as soon as I got on the train, they were all like, man, this is cool. Love this post. Click like on that post. Hey, Max, we're really excited that you're having this great adventure. Like I said, it was the same people that a week earlier were scared to death or telling me I needed to be safe or that who knows what might happen to you in New York kind of stuff. As soon as I got on the train, it's like the whole thing changed, and their attitude towards the trip changed, and a lot of people became much more supportive of me going. And I tell you, I wish I could get this kind of response to posts about the amusement equipment, because, I'm getting 30, 50 or more likes on a Facebook post, actually getting comments on my YouTube videos for a change, so I have, it seems like my family, they are much more supportive about the writing, the blogging, and all that stuff than they are about the Midway Marketplace, even though the Midway Marketplace generates more actual income than the Blind Blogger does at this point.
Right. Yeah. So, did your experiences growing up in the carnival business help you to naturally take to blogging as far as like the entertainment aspects go, holding an audience's attention and that sort of thing, or getting your name out there?
I haven't really ever thought about that part of it, but there probably is something to the idea that somebody who spends a lot of his time contacting events to get bookings, or actually out on the Midway trying to get people to spend money on his game, or, those kinds of things where you're constantly dealing with the public, probably did help. I generally like to think more, though, that what has helped me with blogging is that when you run a small business, and most anybody that has a family business can relate to this, but it's more especially true when you're in the amusement industry with a carnival or a circus or a rodeo or something like that. People do not care. They do not care about your excuses. All they care about is that the rides are open and they can buy a bag of cotton candy and a funnel cake on Thursday or Friday. So you learn a lot about finding unusual solutions to difficult problems, overcoming a lack of resources, talent, and skills, because it often comes down to just finding some way, any way, to get open, to get to next week. And I think that has really served me well with the blog, with the website, with the online business, with pretty much anything that I do. I don't know if you know David Rafe from Join Up Dots, but he told me a few years ago, he said, Max, after hearing some of the stuff you had to do to be successful as a carnival owner, I would call what you did in that part of your life a PhD program in hustle and muscle.
Yeah, I like that. Hustle and muscle.
And so I have stolen that from David Rafe.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I figured there was something, you were drawing on something from your experiences in the carnival business. So that's fascinating. Good to know.
Yeah, and when I was in New York City, I was reminded that there's still a carny in me, because while we were walking around Times Square, we passed the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum.
Oh, I love those.
They had an old school barker out there, a freak that was nailing nails into his forehead. And he's working the crowd the whole time he's doing this. And I actually had to stop the guy who was with me at the time and go, look, man, we got to get this on video, because this is like something you never see anymore anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. And this guy is really, really good at it. So we actually took video of this guy that's barking out front of Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. And we even went in and walked around to the free exhibits that they have in the lobby, but we didn't decide to take the tour because the Ripley's Museum in New York City is a very expensive attraction.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been to a couple of them. The latest one was in Branson, Missouri. I think I've been to one in Colorado. I love those museums. But yeah, that's true. You don't see guys hammering their heads with nails very often. And doing it in an entertaining way,
Oh yeah. He was definitely working the crowd, and people were standing there taking pictures of him and taking video. We weren't the only ones that were getting it on our camera. And I even talked to his manager and told him just how good the guy was. And she's like, "Yeah, we know how good he is. We're afraid someday he's going to decide he doesn't need to do this no more."
Yeah. Is there some trick to that, or is he actually doing it?
I think it's a little of both. I don't have any experience with the sideshow part of the industry, so I couldn't tell you. But I think it's probably a little of both. While he
Okay.
was doing it, he was explaining that a lot of it has to do with where on your forehead you drive the nail.
Right. Interesting. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting squeamish here thinking about it. So maybe that guy needs a blog.
Being able to see what they're doing is, sometimes not being able to see what they're doing is a good thing.
Absolutely. Right. Maxwell, let me ask you this as we wrap up here. How has blogging changed your life?
That's a tough question because I don't exactly know. I would say the one thing it's done for me as far as the websites and the blog and the books is that every time I've done something new, it has reminded me that there's a lot more inside me than I ever thought before. That, when I was a kid, I thought the only thing I wanted to be was a carnival owner. And then later when the carnival failed, it was an equipment broker. But as I have done more of this other stuff, it's like every time you do something new, it's a reminder that the only reason you can't do something or don't, maybe you can or can't, but a lot of times it just comes down to, do you feel like you can give it a good effort, that you can find a way, you can learn from other people, you can take action and move forward. And in the last 3 years or so, I have written a blog, written 2 books, won the Amtrak Award, working on a 3rd book. I started singing on YouTube, and people started asking me to sing during interviews, and everybody's cool with that. I am now at least talking about the idea of a book tour and a speaking tour later this year or the first of next year, depending on how long it takes me to finish the book. Somebody asked me a while back, Max, if there was one word you could use to describe yourself before all of this, what would it be? And I said limited. And they said, what word would you use now? And the word I used was panoramic. And I think that's about the best way I can answer your question, because the more you do, the more you feel like you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just curious, how do you respond to somebody? Because I haven't spent time with you, so I don't know the answer to this. Like when you hear somebody give a lame excuse to get out of something or to prevent themselves from doing something great. I mean, how do you respond to that?
Well, I don't usually have to respond to that because many people that visit my blog or that have listened to me on the radio, they will say, if Max can do it, then what is my excuse? So in general, people don't bring me their excuses because they know that I'm not the kind of person who is going to listen to them or appreciate them. So I guess that's a good thing for me. But if somebody did come up with a lame excuse, I would just have to ask them whatever questions would come after their excuse to see if I can't get them to admit that it's just an excuse. Because quite often, that's all it is. We don't really want to do something, so we'll find reasons why not to. A lot of that has to do with comfort with where we're at, even if where we're at isn't comfortable. A lot of it has to do with the fear of, well, what if I try something new and my life gets worse? So people generally don't bring me their excuses, but I'm not one of these people who accepts them. I don't give them in my life. I'll give you a perfect example. I was in New York City, and they wouldn't let me go up in the Empire State Building because I didn't have a guide with me, and they didn't have a guide they could give me. So the next day, I decided not to try to go to the 9/11 Memorial or the Empire State Building because I wasn't sure if the same thing would happen there. But the next day, I got on the train to go to Chicago. My plan when I got up that morning was, Max, they've got a big-ass tall building in Chicago called the Sears Tower, and we got a 4-hour layover. Now, I didn't end up getting to go up in the Sears Tower because I had a problem with my ticket that took over an hour, if not 2 hours, to address. But I had already decided, Max, making excuses isn't your thing. Deciding not to try to do something because the last time didn't go well, that's not who you are. And I think it's going to be a great lesson in the end of the book, or close to the end of it at least.
He's taking away all of our excuses. He's Maxwell Ivey, the blind blogger. Max, it's been great having you on the Blog Chronicles today.
Well, Matthew, I've really enjoyed being on with you. I've had a great time talking, and hopefully the people listening are getting a lot out of this and will take action in their lives. And I just want to mention one thing. People ask me if I mind being referred to as an inspiration or as inspirational. And I tell people, no, I don't mind, as long as they will tell me what I have inspired them to. So if you decide to leave a comment on Matthew's show and you're going to say that I'm so inspirational, then the comment needs to include to what? Either something you've done or are going to do, say, in the next hour to 48 hours kind of thing for me. That's what I like to hear from, because it's okay if people say I'm inspirational, but it's really a thrill if I see that by people listening to me, they actually took action and did something in their lives that they wouldn't have done before hearing me.
Boom. I love it. We'll be looking for those comments. How can people follow you online? Sure.
They can go to theblindblogger.net, theblindblogger.net. On Twitter, I'm at Maxwell Ivey, youtube.com/Maxwell Ivey. And if they would just like to email me, they can go to justask@theblindblogger.net.
Absolutely.
And for people who visit the website and sign up to the email list, I'm now offering to review at least one pitch email for them, because I feel like one of the best things I can do for people is to get them over the fear of pressing send. That most everybody has at least one thing that they would like to ask people, either to be on a show or to have a mentor, or maybe to be one of next year's Amtrak riders. And a lot of people are they either are afraid that they're not doing it right, or they have that perfection issue that keeps them from just going ahead and sending it out. So that's one thing I've decided I can do to really help people is to review their most important pitch email, give them some good quality advice on it, and encourage them to just press send.
All right, sounds great. And you say that you, and I know this is true because I've seen some of your videos, you do a little singing online. I was wondering if you could close out the show with a verse or two of a song.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I don't know how good I'm going to be today, but I will do it.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Also, I always tell people, don't ask a singer to sing, because the answer will never be no.
You didn't know this was coming either, so.
No, I didn't know this was coming. It happens often, but you never know for sure until you get to that point in the show. All righty. Oh, there's a million oil wells pumping that black gold all over the world. Sheiks and cowboy billionaires with limousines loaded with sparkling girls. Money can't buy happiness. Just listen to the story they tell. All you need to really succeed in life is one good well. It takes a one good well, deep and ever flowing. One good well to draw from night and day. It's pure, refined, and it's yours and mine, and it's always enough. We got one good well, overflowing with an everlasting love.
He's one good well, Maxwell Ivey, the blind blogger.
Max, the blind blogger.
Yeah, Max, it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it, and look forward to the show going live, and to staying connected with you and hanging out with you online.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to developing a more of a friendship with you as we get to know each other.
Me too. That's the way this stuff is supposed to work. It's not supposed to be a one and done.
Right. Exactly.
All righty.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Blog Chronicles. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe on YouTube or iTunes and leave a rating or review to help other bloggers find us. If you want to chat, look me up on Twitter @MattLoomis. So who is going to be my next guest on the Blog Chronicles? The next blog we will chronicle is in the spiritual niche. And this featured blogger is steadily building an audience and has begun to monetize his blog, all in his spare time while working as a musical director of a church. We will find out why he's so passionate about the spiritual niche and how he goes about taking action and getting things done on his website despite his busy life working full-time while being a husband and father. I'll see you next time.